We'll call this meeting to order from the Podiatric Medical Examiners Advisory Board of TDLR. It's 10 o'clock on Monday, December 8th, 2025. First thing, just some housekeeping. Remember, when you speak, please introduce yourself so we can record that information. If you're not speaking, just hit the mute button so we can eliminate some background noise that always seems to occur on these meetings. And we'll start with a roll call for quorum. And Angelica?
Yes. Dr. Leslie Campbell. Dr. Corey Brown.
Here.
Dr. Michael Lunsford.
Here.
Dr. Joe Martin.
Here.
Dr. Renee Peach. Kristen Lucky.
Present.
Maria Hernandez.
Present.
Sirenia Terrazas. And presiding officer, Dr. Travis Molly.
Present.
You have a quorum, sir.
Wonderful. Okay, so that was agenda item B. Agenda item C is open meetings, government training. Ms. Sapstead, is there anything we need an update on that?
Yes. Hi. Good morning, advisory board members. I'm Cassie Sapstead, Assistant General Counsel of TDLR, and I'm here to present the annual open government training. I'll go through this as quickly as possible. Let me just get my screen shared. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So during the training, we will go over 3 different statutes. First, the Open Meetings Act, or OMA, then the Administrative Procedure Act, or APA, and we will conclude with the Public Information Act, also known as the Open Records Act. So again, starting off with the Open Meetings Act. The purpose of the Open Meetings Act is to ensure open and transparent government. The Open Meetings Act requires notice ahead of the meeting, which includes the time, place, and subject matter of the meeting. And as you all know, the meeting must be open to the public. Here's a few key concepts we'll go through. The first one is quorum, then deliberation and meetings. A quorum is simply the minimum number of advisory board advisory board members required to be present in order to take official action. You can meet without a quorum, but of course you cannot take official action without a quorum. Deliberation or discussion simply means a verbal or written exchange among a quorum of a governmental body or between a quorum of a governmental body and another person concerning an issue within the jurisdiction of that governmental body. A quorum cannot engage in deliberations without complying with the Open Meetings Act requirements. In other words, during advisory board meetings, we are confined to discussing items on the agenda, and we cannot discuss the things outside of the agenda because we have not given the public proper notice ahead of time of what's going to be discussed during the meeting. So what exactly constitutes a meeting under the Open Meetings Act? Well, a meeting occurs anytime a quorum of a governmental body engages in deliberation regarding the public business or public policy over which the governmental body has supervision or control, or any time the body takes formal action. As I've already mentioned, the Open Meetings Act requires advance notice of the date, time, place, and subject matter we intend to discuss at the meeting. This notice must be filed at least 7 days before a meeting with the Texas Secretary of State and posted online by both TDLR and the Texas Secretary of State. So does this mean you can never meet with other advisory board members and have conversations? Of course not. If members of the board meet and deliberate where to have lunch after the meeting concludes, which I know in this case is unlikely since you all are in different locations, but supposing you weren't, that discussion does not need to be on the agenda. Now there's a quick Q&A here on the slide. Keeping in mind that a meeting occurs whenever the quorum of a governmental body engages in discussion about an issue within the governmental body's jurisdiction, can you ever meet in an informal setting without violating the Open Meetings Act? Yes, you're free to engage in conversations that are incidental to the event. However, the discussion will be subject to the Open Meetings Act if a quorum of members is involved and the members engage in a discussion or make decisions about board or committee business or take formal action. And then here we're talking about the walking quorum. Always be aware of any situation occurring outside of a properly noticed meeting in which a quorum of members is present or engaged in discussion. Do not engage in substantive conversations relating to the board or committee business or policy when a quorum is involved and you're outside of an officially noticed and scheduled meeting. Then here at the bottom, we talk about beware of a walking quorum. You may not have a walking quorum to begin with, but could ultimately end up with a quorum if, say, your discussion with one or two other members turns into forwarding the discussion to other members and so forth. So always be mindful of that, especially with email correspondence, because I think that's a really easy way to not realize it's happening, and then ultimately you have that walking quorum. Again, here's an example of what a walking quorum, what that could be. Say it's a 5-member advisory board, 2 members exchange phone calls and emails expressing thoughts on an upcoming rule change, and then exchange research that they have. And then, as I said, then you forward that to another member. And that's how the walking quorum can occur, because once what started as you're just discussing it with, say, one other person, now you've started forwarding it to other members. So again, just be very mindful about that. Here's all the ways walking quorums can happen: conference calls, video conferences, hallway discussions, emails, text messages, and other technologies like social media. And then here's just some best practices to avoid the walking quorum. Again, just try to avoid meeting in small groups, discussing board or committee business, and then communicate those discussions to other members. Again, I've said the email example several times. Just try to avoid that. And then again, creating posts on social media about board business where the likelihood exists that a quorum of members could participate. Or the last point here is what is referred to as polling, which is where you ask, say, members on an individual basis for feedback or comments outside of the public meeting. So, and that's essentially considered an informal vote on an issue. So again, we are limited to discussing what is on the agenda, but that does not prevent a member of the public or an advisory board member from raising an issue that is not on the agenda. However, any discussion will be limited to proposing that particular item for a future meeting, essentially. All right. So, some best practices to avoid violating the act on the basis of insufficient notice. Again, limit discussions to what's on the agenda. Try to avoid veering off course and talking about stuff that is not on the agenda. And again, when, say, members of the public come and they have comment, not responding to issues raised, and again, specifically identify issues that may come up that have not been properly noticed. Like, hey, let's add that to the next agenda. And then, of course, naturally, there are penalties for Open Meeting Act violations. Some of the civil remedies Basically, any interested person, including the media, may petition the courts to stop actions taken in violation of the Open Meetings Act. The Open Meetings Act also specifically states that an action taken in violation of the act is voidable. Can't be civil penalties without criminal penalties too. And some of those are members who knowingly participate in a walking quorum or who knowingly participate in a meeting that is closed to the public are subject to misdemeanor criminal penalties. The penalties are a fine of $100 to $500, confinement in county jail for 1 to 6 months, or both the fine and jail time. Again, just kind of summing things up here. Avoid communications that involve a quorum of a board or community members about official business outside of a properly noticed meeting. I think I've said that about 10 different ways in the course of this part of the training. And again, confine any discussion during these meetings, like what we're having today, to items that are specifically posted on the agenda. This next slide here are just some resources for you. The OAG has different training information and a video. This points you to the statute where this comes from. And of course, there's the General Counsel office number if you have any questions at all. Now we will lead into the Administrative Procedure Act. For our purposes, we're primarily focused on the rulemaking provisions in the APA, but of course there is also the other aspect of it too is, I guess, the SOA piece where there's the hearings, but again, for our purposes, we're primarily focused on the rulemaking provisions. So what is a rule? Well, a rule is a statement of general applicability made by a state agency that implements, interprets, or prescribes law or policy, or describes the procedure or practice requirements of a state agency. A rule excludes a statement regarding only the internal management or organization of a state agency and not affecting private rights or procedures. A rule includes a new rule, an amendment to an existing rule, and the repeal of an existing rule. So here's some examples of where rulemaking originates. Of course, we have legislative changes, advisory boards like you guys. TDLR staff will initiate. We also have 4-year rule reviews, and then the last one is a rule petition. Rule petitions don't happen quite as frequently, but in essence, any interested person may submit a petition to the state agency requesting the adoption of a rule. An interested person is anyone who is a Texas resident, a business entity located in Texas, and a governmental subdivision in Texas, or a public or private organization that is not a state agency but is located in Texas. Again, this does not come up very often, but this is another avenue. Here we have a graphic. I'm not going to go through this entire graphic, but this is essentially what the rulemaking process, what it looks like. And as you can see, there are many steps involved. Part of this including you guys. And whenever we do have rules, we present to you guys. And so again, there's many steps here, but this is just a really nice summary and illustration that shows the steps involved. And then, as I mentioned, another place that rulemaking originates is also through the 4-year rule review process. And again, another graphic that illustrates that. And one thing to note about the 4-year rule review process, whenever we do that, a lot of that is internal. These are discussions that we're having internally. And that doesn't mean we're not changing the rules at the same time we're having those discussions, but essentially what they're there for is to say, okay, do we still like the rules the way they're written? Should we make any changes? And that's essentially what that's for. And then the rulemaking, that other illustration, comes after that. So And here, lastly, once again, here's some resources should you decide you want to dive into rulemaking further. And again, pointing out there's the general counsel's office number on there. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. And then lastly, we have the Public Information Act. The Public Information Act, also known as the Open Records Act, essentially makes all documents, records, and other information related to official business open to the public. There are some exceptions to this, but the general rule is government records are open to the public. Something to keep in mind, this can also mean anything maintained on a personal device that is connected to official agency business. I always like to give that caution, like even that's just something that I, as an attorney, am always telling colleagues, like do not talk about agency business on your personal device, because I don't think people realize that can be potentially subject to open records. So here's just a summary of what the process looks like. So the public may request copies of public information or request to inspect the information in the offices of the governmental body. Requests must be submitted in writing through the TDLR Records Center, which can be accessed on our website. And time is really of the essence here. We have 10 business days to respond after receiving the request. And we cannot ask for why someone wants the records. We can only ask for clarifications through the GC Open Records team. It's important, again, that we respond timely, because if we do not, then we can lose our right to withhold records. So again, I already went through this. There's the presumption of openness, but here's some things that might be redacted. I think these all make common sense, that date of births, most email addresses, driver's license plate, VIN records, credit card numbers, of course, anything protected by HIPAA. And as far as other items outside of this list here, an OAG ruling must be sought to redact other information. Now let's talk about what happens if one of you receives a request. So as an advisory board member, if you receive a written request for records or correspondence that it looks like a public information request, please forward the request ASAP to the advisory board team, who will then forward it to the Office of General Counsel Open Records team. Again, if the GC Open Records team requests information from you related to that request, please respond ASAP, because again, the 10-day deadline applies to all requests. And then in conclusion, here's yet again another resource slide if you are really curious about the Public Information Act. And again, we're here for you guys, so please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions. And that concludes the training. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate you going through it. I mean, in-person meetings are always a little more, you have to pay a little more attention, I think, to kind of the walk-in quorum stuff, but really appreciate that.
Of course.
So that was agenda item C. Moving on, agenda item D, approval of minutes. So everyone got the minutes from our last meeting on August 19th, 2024. So I'll take a motion and a second to approve those minutes as presented.
So moved.
That was
Second.
Lunsford.
Second by Brown.
And second from Dr. Brown. Okay. And Helica, can we do a roll call
Yes, sir.
vote to approve, please?
Yes. Dr. Corey Brown,
Approved.
Dr. James Michael Lunsford,
Approved.
Dr. Joe Martin,
Approve. Approve.
Kristen Lucky,
Approved.
Maria Hernandez,
Approve.
and presiding officer, Dr. Travis Molly.
Approve.
Motion approved.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was agenda item D. Agenda item E is public comment. We only received one public comment from TPMA. That was in your meeting notice. That letter, if y'all have it, is dated December 4th. Basically, there are two areas in this which I'll summarize for you. One of them starts on the third paragraph that has to do with the CPME 720 document, which has to do with continuing medical education and their approval list. So just so you know, CPME has 3 approved vendors, so to speak, within our state. One is Greater Texas Education Foundation, one is UT San Antonio, and the third is TPMA. So TPMA has asked for an update. Basically, they state in the third paragraph what the current rule states, and basically their request is just to clarify internet live activity. So just as a history, we did this around 2020 to allow COVID educational events. That was kind of the background of that. It was important at that time. Obviously, guidelines have changed. I think their request is best summarized just by their internet live activity in paragraph 4, which they quote from the CPME 320 document. If you have that document, it's on page 36, the top of page 36, and their quote that TPMA sent is exactly the quote there. The only difference between what our rules stated before and what CPME says now is just clarifying that language. It's really, I don't think there's anything substantive there, but that's just my opinion. Does anyone have any input on that?
Can I jump in? Again, this is Cassie Sapstead, Assistant GC for TDLR. Just before you guys chat too much about it, just again, I would suggest if this is something that you guys would like to explore further, that you add it as an agenda item for a future meeting. Just so we don't dive too much into it, since since the public wasn't given an actual copy of what this comment is. So that is my suggestion, perhaps, that if you guys do want to have a more robust discussion about it, that we add that as a future agenda item.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you, Cassie. I think that excellent advice, and then it's certainly I think it's worth putting as a future agenda item. But I'd love to hear from the group.
Of course, I agree. It needs to be presented so the public has an opportunity if we're going to place this on another agenda item for the future.
And this is Steve Eker, compliance manager, and this is because we opened up the rules. We're just into the 4-year rule review, and this is why they're making this comment. So there's an opportunity to update our rules, and that's what we're in the process of doing. And Cassie will jump in here, but as we draft those rules, we'll definitely get them out to you all, to the specific work group for your direct input.
Okay. So, anyone else with comment? So I think to keep it clean, the agenda items need to be internet live activity definition from CPME 720. That it would be one agenda item, and the second agenda item, to keep it clean again and keep them separate, would be limiting continuing education hours per biennium. Did anyone see any other ask from TPMA in that open or in that public comment? Did you see any others in there, Steve? Pretty much those two.
Yeah, that's what they're concerned about.
Okay. So does someone want to make a motion? Those are on the next agenda item. Or
Dr. Marley,
next
we don't
meeting
need a
agenda.
motion. I've made a note of it. So I'll
Okay.
make sure things get added to the next agenda.
Perfect. All right. And that was the only public comment we received. So that was agenda item E. Agenda item F, staff reports. We'll start with licensing division. Ms. Hoffman.
Good morning, advisory board members. My name is Mary Hoffman, and I am going to be providing the licensing staff report for you this morning. I am temporarily filling in for the licensing manager position. Leonard Rivas, the previous licensing manager, retired over the summer, and so we are actively looking to fill that place, his position. So in front of you, you have the statistics for FY24, FY25, and the first quarter of fiscal year FY26. You'll see that we have total population currently for the first quarter of fiscal year 26 of 1,256 doctors of podiatric medicine, with 100% of the renewals being submitted online. And for the podiatric medical radiological technician, you also have those same fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25, and your first quarter fiscal year 26 numbers in front of you, with a total population for the first quarter of fiscal year 26 being 260. And we have 100% online renewal as well, with 38 of those online renewals. TDLR is currently working on a project developing a new licensing system. The new licensing system is going to be called TDLR Core. And what this project does is it brings 8 different licensing systems into one system that all of the TDLR programs can function out of one licensing system. So this project is going to be about a 3-year-long project. And so as the programs get moved into the new system in phases, notices will be sent out to any of the individuals subscribed for your program, and also updates will be posted on the website. So I recommend, in order to keep up with any of these future changes for the new system, I encourage everyone to subscribe for email notifications and or to frequently check back on the website for updates. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Dr. Mall, I think Mary Hoffman's done. We can move on to customer
Sorry.
service if you're okay. It's okay.
Oh, no, I'm talking to myself apparently over here, just on the mute button, of course. So
Okay.
thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Number 2, agenda item number 2, customer service division, Ms. Martinez Castellan.
Hi, good morning, advisory board members. I'm Patricia Martinez Castellan, the customer service manager. I'll be sharing our stats for fiscal years 2025 and 2026. During FY25, the podiatry program received a total of 1,652 customer contacts, ranging between 78 and 246 contacts per month. The majority of these interactions were handled by phone, with email volume remaining consistently low throughout the year, as these emails for this program are typically handled by the licensing team. The highest volume occurred in October with 246 total contacts. As we went into FY26, podiatry contacts continue to show steady activity. In September, we recorded 115, and in October, volume increased to 274. We can determine that an increase in contact in October is typically or is likely attributed to license renewal inquiries, which they traditionally drive higher call volume during that period. At the time that our FY26 report was submitted, the month of November wasn't yet complete, but we're continuing to capture contact data for this program. That concludes the customer service report. If anybody has any questions.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 3, Enforcement Division, Ms. Manzanares. My bad.
No worries. Good morning, board members. My name is Alana Manzanares, and I'm a prosecutor for the Enforcement Division. I'll be presenting the report for you today, covering key statistics and case highlights. At the very top of the report, you have the division's performance measures. You'll notice that fewer cases have opened this year compared to the same time last year. The next section is the criminal history review for applicants who may have disqualifying criminal history. As you can see, none of the podiatric applicants were denied licenses based on their criminal history. The next section details where the Enforcement Division's complaints come from, whether they're from consumers or from within the agency. The pie graphs at the top of the next page visualize this information for you. In the orders issued section, you can see that we had one order this year, which was an agreed order. On the next page, you can see that there's an increase in complaints related to negligence or malpractice and unprofessional or unethical conduct, but fraud has declined significantly. Then dropping down to the violations resulting in disciplinary action, you can see that there are 2 related to negligence or malpractice and unprofessional or unethical conduct. Those cases are detailed below in the case highlights. Finally, we have 3 podiatric subject matter experts. We are actively seeking podiatrists that are in good standing to serve as subject matter experts to assist our Enforcement Division with complaint case reviews. And that concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions.
I have just one question. If you scroll to the very top on time to resolution, I think it was more on page 1 of your report, average resolution in days, for average time for closing the complaint. Is there anything that you're aware of that caused almost this 100-day increase in time to closing a complaint?
Yeah, it's because we have a lack of subject matter experts.
Okay. Okay. And then I know y'all have sent out, TDLR has sent out emails requesting subject matter experts. And I assume there's a process for vetting that or validating those options, because I know I sent a couple of suggestions in as to who could be a subject matter expert too. Is TDLR actively recruiting that or trying to solve that?
Yes. We have 3 currently, and we're trying to recruit more. The form is online for people to apply to, and we review those applications.
Okay. Just as a historical point with this particular column, that has always been a tough spot for what was the TSB PME, which is now the advisory board. And those numbers, every time we went to sunset, was always something they looked at unfavorably, by the way.
Okay.
So the more active we can be in recruiting that, the better that number will probably be if you're waiting on subject matter experts. Which I think if you send out an email to either residency programs within the state or to board members, I think those are good places to recruit from.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments regarding Enforcement Division? Okay, thank you so much. That was agenda item 3. Number 4, education examination. Ms. Cortez?
Simone, I don't think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Okay, let me restart. Good morning, everyone. My name is Simone Cortez, and I'm a Program Specialist 3 for our Education and Examination Division on our exams team. So here we have our jurisprudence pass rates. At the bottom, you can find that statistic for FY24, and at the top, we have it for our most recent fiscal year 2025. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cortez. Any questions regarding examination division? Wonderful. That was agenda item 4, agenda item 5, compliance. Ms. Acevedo.
Good morning, presiding officer, and good morning, advisory board members. My name is Adia Acevedo, and I'm happy to present compliance updates to you today. First of all, we have had some personnel updates. Your good friend Steve Eaker was promoted to be the manager of the health professions. I was promoted to take his place, so I am the new program specialist in podiatry. And we also have Anna Clark, who was previously with the advisory board team, and she is now our team lead in the health and wellness division in compliance. We also have many current projects. As you know, the 89th legislative session adjourned in June of this year, and we are now having a bill implementation with several bills that touch podiatry. One specific to podiatry is Senate Bill 968. It eliminates the provisional license and term temporary license and replaces it with residency license in order to clarify the requirement during residency. So a candidate enrolled in an accredited GPME program or their residency must hold a residency license, which is valid for 1 year and has to be renewed annually. Moving on to House Bill 1700, this touches all the health professions, and it requires a standardized format for telehealth consent documentation regarding treatment, data collection, and data sharing. So this is really only for practices that are not already utilizing consent documentation for telehealth consultations. House Bill 541 is also one that is for all health professions, and it defines direct patient care as an option for care. In direct patient care, payment is made directly to a provider through something like a subscription or a plan, and the provider is prohibited from billing insurance, and the provider must tell patients that insurance does not cover anything done in this direct patient care facility. Lastly, House Bill 11. This bill directs us to facilitate licensure assessments for substantial equivalency. Where possible, we must sign reciprocity agreements with other states, and this impacts hundreds of license types at TDLR. It's a big project that's underway. Implementing this, as I said, is a big project and will take approximately 2 years of continuous work. Apart from that, from bill implementation, compliance staff is continuing to assist other TDLR divisions with various projects, and we also address daily questions and emails from licensees. And we will be engaging with work groups as any rule changes relating to the last legislative session, such as for the Senate Bill 968, the podiatry bill. We'll be engaging with the work groups for any of the changes in the rules. Also, podiatry is one of the programs, as Cassie talked about earlier, Ms. Sapsi stated, podiatry is one of the programs that is up for a 4-year rule review. So proposed rule amendments will be shared for your consideration. As far as outreach goes, in July, staff attended the National APMA Annual Scientific Meeting in Dallas, Fort Worth. And over the summer, staff and the health and wellness intern visited Dr. Ledger's podiatry practice. So thank you so much for that educational visit. And in September, our staff attended the TPMA annual meeting in Las Colinas, Irving, Texas. And we delivered a presentation on legislative and regulatory developments. It was wonderful to see everyone there. And the medical and health profession staff held a standard of care work group in October of this year. And the two subjects discussed during this work group were professional medical designations and spinal cord stimulation technology prescription. So it was a good conversation with Dr. Campbell. And again, as ever, if you have any outreach opportunities that you would like for us to attend or you'd like us to give a presentation, please feel free to contact me, Aria Acevedo, Anna Clark, or Steve Eaker. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I am prepared to be here.
Fantastic. Any questions at all? I will tell you, I meant to open, of course, with those congratulatory remarks about everybody kind of getting another notch. It's really fantastic and reflective of the work you do. So it's wonderful.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Absolutely, you deserve it. Agency update regarding any agency operations and staffing, Ms. Myers.
Good morning, presiding officer and members. My name is Brandy Myers. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. A couple of updates. TDLR hit some pretty big milestones as of 9/1 of 2025. We now serve over 1 million licensees in the state of Texas. So that is huge, and that's a testament to our staff and all the hard work that they do to get these folks, people, places, and things licensed. So thank you. Also in fiscal year 25, the agency fielded more than 12,000 consumer complaints and conducted more than 7,000 investigations, resulting in more than 800,000 in consumer restitution. So our enforcement team they are working just as hard as can be for our citizens of Texas. As it relates to legislative updates, the 89th legislature brought some organizational changes to TDLR with the addition of the Texas Lottery and charitable bingo programs. These programs will now be administered by TDLR, and a dedicated transition team is helping to incorporate those into the agency. As of 9/1, that transition officially happened, and it is going well. The Texas Lottery successfully generated $1.8 billion for the state of Texas in fiscal year 25 from $7.91 billion in total sales. And this is relating to, again, their revenue. As you know, the lottery it's a thing in Texas. And so there's a lot of revenue, but that revenue goes to a lot of great causes in the state. And the vast majority of the lottery's revenue is actually dedicated to supporting essential state services. As for instance, public education, $1.77 billion was contributed to the Foundation School Fund, which supports Texas public schools, including teacher salaries and school operations. Additionally, a record $31.1 million was provided to the fund for veterans assistance to support grants for organizations serving Texas veterans and their families. So lots of money, but going to lots of great causes in the state and serving our veterans in schools. Additionally, there was Senate Bill 1036, which created a new program at TDLR. It's the regulation of residential solar retailers, which will begin implementation in 2026. And as a result of those new programs, we are now overseeing 42 programs at TDLR. Additionally, House Bill 4215 created the regulation of delivery network companies. So those are some of the big highlights that happened in the legislature. As you know, a lot of those have an impact on the agency, as discussed. We've got a great team that is making it all happen. The other thing that I had to cover, Mary Hoffman covered very well from about our TDLR core update, which is our new system. So I won't repeat the good news that she has shared. And that concludes all of my updates, and I'm happy to answer any questions should you have them.
Great. Thank you so much. It lets you know how big TDLR is. So, I mean, it's a monster. It's a monster. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. That brings us to agenda item G, standard of care work group. Again, Ms. Acevedo.
All right. Thank you so much, presiding officer. Yes. So on October 20th, we met with Dr. Campbell Dr. Campbell, Steve Eaker, myself, Aria Acevedo, and Anna Clark all met on Monday, October 20th, 2025. We discussed two topics: spinal cord stimulation and nerve stimulation in general for managing diabetic peripheral neuropathy, and the professional designation of podiatric physician as stated in Texas Administrative Code Rule 13050A and B. The work group recommends the following. In regards to spinal cord stimulation and similar emerging pain management technology, podiatrists should refer a patient to a pain management specialist, a neurosurgeon, or an orthopedist for the implementation of any device. The work group also recommends keeping any mention of a podiatrist as a podiatric physician in the rules. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay. Well, thanks for the extra work on that. And Dr. Campbell is always one to volunteer, to lead and participate in those things. And she does an awful lot for our board. She does it not only in these standard of care work group type settings, she also does it, as Steve knows, with other agencies that want board meetings. Dr. Campbell she's a trooper, man. There's no quit. She's really fantastic, and we're lucky to have her. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Acevedo.
Thank you.
Agenda item H, recommendation for agenda items for next board meeting. So we have already talked about those two items to try to keep those, or to try to place those on the next agenda item. And just for clarity, do the recommendations from the standard of care work group, do those need to go onto the agenda items? Probably a good
Steve
question for Ms. Sapstead.
or Ms. Apsia? I want to defer to Steve and Cassie on that one.
Well, I think that, so in the work group, we kind of discussed, it was brought up that the nerve stimulators, were a up and coming technology, and there was some concern that maybe podiatrists were getting too deeply involved in them in terms of perhaps exceeding their scope. But at the podiatry conference, we talked to a lot of podiatrists about them, and they were definitely like, no, we just refer people to these companies that are doing this, or these practices, and it's in a community. It's the community of care. Like, you'll refer to a DO or an MD or whoever will, if surgery is required for something like that. And the second topic, the TMAs had their comment regarding our rules that we passed in our last advisory board session, and so we wanted to kind of respond officially to that. And the whole thing with their argument is like the term podiatric physician, it doesn't comply with the Medical Act in this, and this term has been in the podiatry rules since even before 2005 with no objection from TMA, and or maybe they did object, I don't know. But also it's used by Medicaid nationally. Podiatric physician is in use, and it's in use in 24 states in their Podiatric Physician Act. And so it's not like something we're inventing to impose, or grow the scope of a podiatrist in some kind of acrimonious relationship with the TMA. That is not what's happening.
Yeah, I think it's been, I agree with you, Steve. I think it's been in the language for years. It's in the language of multiple states. It does not create a source of confusion. It never has. But I don't know what we need to do with their comment, if anything.
I think that the whole point was just so that we have an official answer, and that we've discussed this, and we could send them some kind of, we could take that report and I guess fashion it into a response for them, if that is something that
I think it's certainly reasonable. Put it in the Christmas card.
okay.
Yeah, I think what you said, just the factual findings of what you said. You know, it's been in that language for this many years. It's also in this many states. It's also in Medicaid language. So I think that's very appropriate and an excellent option. Any suggestions or further input regarding that from the board?
Yeah, Joe Martin, I would agree that we just need to have some sort of clear response and outlining the things that you've talked about.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Wonderful input. Thanks, Dr. Martin. One quick question before we go to and just from Ms. Manzanares, are board members could that be a possible source for subject matter experts?
Hi, Solana Manzanares, Enforcement Division. Yes, they are, but y'all won't be able to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it remains an option available to you. But also, you know, further, we can also help recruit, I think, further. There's always this very small group of people that do the work, right? But the small group of people that do the work seem to know the other people that are willing to do the work. So, you know, I mean, you even mentioned that y'all went to Dr. Ledger's office earlier. Number one, very brave. Dr. Ledger's quite a character. So y'all made it out of there. Dr. Ledger, I don't know if he's a subject matter expert, but he's an excellent resource for the board for sure, and definitely is someone that's always you know, has a history of being involved with the board. And there's several like Dr. Ledger that we're fortunate to have across the state that would we can definitely help recruit for subject matter experts also. Okay.
And in the past, just a quick point here, in the past, Dr. Ledger and I and Dr. Martin, we provided those services, recognizing that there's no compensation here. I don't have a problem with providing those services again. So if you're ever in need, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful. Okay. So that was agenda item H. Any other recommendations for any other agenda items for the next board meeting?
Cassie Sapstead, Assistant GC here again. As Ari mentioned, we are working on the rule language to implement SB 968. And so I would just propose that hopefully everything will be done and we'll be able to present those at the next meeting. So I would like that. I propose that that goes on the agenda for the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Perfect. That was agenda item H. Agenda item I is discussion of date and time for next board meeting. I assume Angelica will do that with some email options again.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That's all of the agenda items for this December 8th, 2025 Podiatry Advisory Board meeting of TDLR. And we're adjourned.